Welcome to Ohio Roots, the official podcast of the Ohio Genealogical Society. Join us as we embark on a captivating journey through Ohio's rich genealogy, history, and abundant resources. Hosted by me, OGS Executive Director Noel Poirier, this podcast brings you insightful conversations with a diverse array of guests, from OGS members, chapter leaders, and staff to renowned genealogists, historians, and influential figures within the genealogical community. Each episode delves into fascinating topics and captivating stories. So grab your headphones, hit that play button, and join us on this enthralling journey of Ohio's roots. My guest on today's episode of the Ohio Roots podcast is LaJoy Mosby, president of the Afro-American Historical and Genealogical Society. I'm very excited to speak with her because I have a particular interest in underrepresented groups in genealogy and how we as an organization and other organizations can reach out to those communities and assist them in searching for their family histories. So I hope you really enjoy this conversation with LaJoy. I know I will. I'd like to welcome LaJoy Mosby. She is the national president for the African American Historical and Genealogical Society. Thank you, LaJoy, for joining us today on the Ohio Roots podcast. I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. I'm going to start with what I always start with anybody, is how is it you found yourself getting interested in doing genealogy?
Honestly, I found myself immersed in genealogy like several people. Roots. In 1977, I was in college. I was watching the miniseries, and it occurred to me afterwards that my great-grandmother, who had died 2 years before, would have been the key to all of the questions about people who had lived in the 19th century. And I was a little annoyed with myself, so I decided to go and start digging.
Okay. It's interesting you mentioned that because a couple things come to mind. One is, I did an interview the other day with one of OGS's chapter presidents, and one of the things she mentioned was she started with all of her living relatives, and I've heard that from several folks who do genealogy. When I ask them, where should you start, and they said, talk to the living, the dead can wait. And I find that as a fascinating story, and it's interesting too. Also, your comment about roots. There was a wonderful interview I listened to the other day with LeVar Burton, where he was talking about his experience filming that and his experience with Alex Haley. And I thought that was really an interesting cut, because I remember as a child, I might be a little younger than you.
I believe so.
but I remember as a child watching that documentary or that miniseries with my parents and just seeing that for the first time as a child. So I could see how for you, especially, that would be a meaningful thing to do. And sidelight, I had the pleasure of meeting Alex Haley when I was in college, which was kind of neat.
Excellent.
Yeah. So describe for me, or for our listeners who aren't aware, what the African American Historical and Genealogical Society's history is, what they do, and things like that.
All righty. Well, the Afro-American Historical and Genealogical Society, Incorporated, as we say, affectionately known as OGS, came about in 1977. Our founder was Mr. James Dent Walker, who was an archivist at the National Archives. Mr. Walker was the archivist. He had worked with Alex Haley, and of course, this was the time of roots and the level of excitement and elevation in I think all communities actually around family genealogy. So there were 7 founders who were in as we say, in the room where it happened. In this case, in the living room where it happened. And we have three of them are still with us. 2 are university historians, and the other is a retiree out in the state of Washington. We are 46 years old, and we have about 32 active chapters nationwide.
Wow.
The majority of our chapters and members are east of the Mississippi, as we say. Okay. So we are working to push ourselves west.
Mm-hmm. What's the mission? What is your kind of mission? I mean, I visited your website, and no, that's okay. I visited your website, so I'm familiar with it. I tried, doing the research to speak to you, but I'm curious. I think our listeners would like to hear that too.
Yes, our mission is focused on African ancestred family history and genealogy, and we work to teach our members and the public genealogy methods and strategies with a focus on African Americans, as well as providing educational programming to the public and focusing on African American history. I call it from a socio-political standpoint because you have to know what was going on with your family at the time to do good research. So that's what we've been about for the last 46 years.
I like the way you've combined historical and genealogical, because I think in a lot of cases, genealogists, as you know, are birth, marriage, death focused. And I'm a historian academically. So for me, storytelling with that information is what's important. And I like how you've made a conscious effort to combine the two. I think that makes a lot of sense, quite frankly.
Well, we encourage our members to develop the information so they can tell the stories of their ancestors.
Sure.
We publish a peer-reviewed journal, and we have a quarterly newsletter, so that our members, and actually for the journal, you don't have to be a member of OGS to submit a manuscript for the journal.
Oh, great.
So we invite people to submit a manuscript to our peer-reviewed journal. We publish about 2 a year, and they are available on Amazon.
Great.
And so for sale. And so we do want people to tell the stories. We want people to be able to cultivate their family history in a way that it is sustainable over time.
Right.
And I think that it's easier sometimes to do if there's a story.
Right.
Pure facts are wonderful because the facts are facts. Yeah. But having some as I said, social political context and just having some idea what was going on at the time when your ancestors lived and what they might have been going through and the decisions that they made and how those decisions may have impacted future generations is just very enlightening for our members and I think for the public as well.
And you mentioned your peer-reviewed journal. I assume there's writers' guidelines and things like that on your website.
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
All of that's on our website.
Great, because I know of people who I think would be really interested in submitting articles who may not have been aware of there was an outlet for it. So I think that's great. That's awesome. You mentioned programs and education. Are there specific programs and activities that the society does to achieve its mission?
Well, we have a variety of programs that we do. That our chapters, each of our chapters develops a program that's germane to their own location every year.
Okay.
And of course, we have national programs as well. So this year we initiated virtual monthly educational programs for our financial members on a variety of topics. And we have one of the projects that we're doing now is the Civil War Blue Jackets. We are in a collaboration with, I want to get it right, Northumbria University in the UK.
Okay.
Us and said, hey, we're transcribing these naval muster rolls, and we were looking for Englishmen and Irishmen, but we see all these African Americans. You guys like to help? We were like, sure. So that's a program that our members and others have been doing. We started a little bit after Memorial Day, and we're going to culminate our participation on Veterans Day. And a lot of people always, when we think about the Civil War and African Americans, we tend to think about the U.S. colored troops or some of the other regiments that were formed, but we don't always think about the Navy. And the Navy was not segregated in that respect. And not only that, those men had pension records too. So if your ancestor lived near water, and walked to a ship, and as opposed to a army camp. And of course, you might find them in the Union pension records for the Navy during the Civil War. So we're working on that project. Previously, we had worked on a project with the Embassy of the Netherlands called the Black Liberators, because they came to us looking for descendants of those who helped liberate aspects of the Netherlands and are buried in Europe. So we worked on that as a national project. And so that's one of the projects that we have worked on in recent years. And of course, we help with Freedmen Bureau transcription records. I'm thinking of more recent projects that we've done. And so that's just an example of some of the nationwide projects that we've done. But our chapters do everything from cemetery preservation. They do a historical site. They work with others around historical sites. They help maintain databases that are germane to specific historical or genealogical aspects of the communities where they reside. They partner with local and state genealogical societies also in the areas where they reside, and they do a lot of public programming and education.
Now you mentioned you have 32 chapters nationwide. Are they geographic chapters, subject chapter related, specialty kind of research chapters?
They're geographical.
Okay.
As I said, most of them are east of the Mississippi. We're going to work on reinvigorating our presence in the Midwest. The pandemic was not kind to us in the Midwest, so we have to. We need to go back and have a resurgence of rebuilding in the Midwest and farther west as well. We're trying to attract new chapters farther west, and of course we have organizations and groups that are coming to us to say we'd like to be a chapter of OGS, and so we're hoping to work on onboarding some of those organizations that happen to be west of the Mississippi this year or early next year.
Okay. One of the things you mentioned when we were talking about what OGS does is that you help people figure out how they can research their Afro-American roots. What are the unique challenges to starting doing genealogy if you're an African American?
African American genealogy, quite frankly, is very similar to everyone else, except when you get to the period of enslavement.
Right.
So when you work, you're starting with yourself, like we always do in genealogy. That's the methodology, and we start to utilize that 1950 census now that we have.
Right. Yeah.
And we work our way back to 1870. The challenges come in getting behind the period of 1870. Can it be done? Absolutely. It's done all the time. It's done every day. Even though people that, there's this notion that it can't be done, it absolutely can be. I've done it. I know many people who have done it. But your strategy changes at that time. If your family were free people of color, you will find them in earlier censuses. I know some people whose families were free and they were actually in the 1790 census. So for some of those people, they can take their family all the way back to the beginning of this country's founding.
Right.
Now, for those of us whose families were enslaved, we have to utilize a different strategy in terms of finding our ancestors and working our way back. In that case, we usually have to identify the slave holder and look at records that others might not look at. We might look at court records, probate records. If they're in the public domain, we can look at letters and Bibles and ledgers and things of that nature that can give you a historical pathway that can take you as far back as you can get. Some of us can get all the way back to the 1700s.
Wow.
Maybe not. But it's a challenge. That is the challenge, and it requires a different set of skill sets of thinking outside of the box, looking at things in different ways, not ignoring records that you might not look at otherwise.
Right. So you really have to kind of think outside the box, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Ohio Roots podcast is brought to you by the Ohio Genealogical Society, the premier gateway for discovering your Ohio family history. To learn more about joining, visit www.ogs.org.
If you enjoy listening to the Ohio Roots podcast, we would really appreciate it if you could go to whatever platform it is that you listen and give us a good review. Reviews help us get more listeners and reach more people with Ohio Roots and what we're trying to do with the Ohio Genealogical Society. So please leave us a nice review, and thanks for listening. You mentioned COVID. What challenges has your society had in achieving your mission? And what I mean by that is, the Ohio Genealogical Society has a certain demographic for our membership. We appeal to a certain demographic. It's tough to get other people involved and engaged, and that's one of the reasons we do things like our Ohio Roots podcast. What are the challenges similar for you, for your group, or are there other challenges as well?
The genealogy societies by nature are boomer organizations.
Right.
Maybe some Gen X is in there, but what we have done is the pandemic was a time of pivoting and flux for our organization, just as it was for most. Most of our chapters were able to pivot to a virtual setting,
Right.
and many are still on Zoom or
Right.
Microsoft Teams or whatever platform. Some of our larger chapters have been able to go into a hybrid setting because they have relationships with organizations that have facilities that are set up for hybrid, which
Right.
is, in my opinion, the best way to do it. Even though, of course, we can do it with a laptop and a camera.
Right. Sure.
But but if you're set up in a facility that is structured for hybrid, that is the best way to do it, in my opinion. However, the pandemic also brought us an opportunity because you could belong to chapters all over the country because you didn't have to physically be there.
Right.
So when we're being on Zoom, you could be in Ohio
Yeah.
and attend the meeting in Maryland or the meeting in Georgia, and especially if you are researching those areas, and it gave you some insight into what those organizations or those chapters were doing during that time. From a national perspective, our national conference, which we had planned to have in Hampton, Virginia in 2020, ended up being virtual, and we've been virtual ever since. And of course, our virtual conference is next week.
Yep.
And October 18th through the 21st, registration is still open. And so we.
I don't know that this will air before then, but we'll see what we can do.
That's okay. All right. And people can stay. Hey, you know what?
We can plug next year.
We'll keep registration open just for you. Everything is recorded, so you have until the end of the year to view it. So if you don't get it, so you can go. Hey, we'll be glad to have you.
Awesome.
Anyway, we can get you. So we've been virtual for the last. This will be fourth year of being virtual, and it's a lot. That has been a shift.
Yeah.
Because getting people used to a platform, using. And a platform is not necessarily your association management platform, and
right.
Trying to work with both is always a challenge. But I think that we have been able to do it successfully. And this year we have over 50 workshops, and there are 2 evening events, and we have a multi-generational panel. We're closing out with a multi-generational panel on the 21st.
Wow.
In an effort to bring in younger people, we now have a student membership for those aged 18 to 25. And we are really trying to engage younger folks who are out there doing genealogy work. We can't say just because they haven't been doing it as long that they don't know what they're doing, because they have significant technology wherewithal.
Yeah.
Compared to some of us.
Right.
But I think the thought is that we have to help people understand that everything is not online. You can do quite a bit online.
Yeah.
But you will miss perhaps some important documents if you only research online.
Yeah.
And I think that that is a little, when you think about traveling to places and the cost of doing that and things of that nature, that is something that can be a little off-putting, but I realize that, and that's why genealogy takes time, right?
Right.
It's not done in a week or a year. Sometimes it takes decades, right?
But my TikTok video is only 10 seconds long, Joy. I have to get it done.
Well, that might be true, but you may have to travel. You may have to get it, go by car, bus, or train, to get to that place so that you can create that TikTok video. So. Hey, we try to encourage them. We try to encourage our younger members.
Yeah, it's a challenge, and I think, and I don't know if it makes you feel any better to know you're not alone in that challenge. But it is a challenge for all of us, I think, and I don't even think just genealogical societies. I think it's young people don't join at the rate that other generations have joined things, and again. You and I are of an age where we have some extra time. We can do some genealogy. Maybe your kids are adult or grown up enough. You don't have to play around with them anymore. I couldn't picture myself doing genealogy when I had 2 young kids running around the house. I don't know how that would work. But so it is a challenge. I think we all face it. Now I should know the answer. Oh, go ahead, LaJoy. I'm sorry.
One thing I was, early morning. One thing I wanted to say was that we have started 3 years ago. We started integrating college interns.
Great.
To our conference program.
Mhm.
And so we have about 15 college interns from universities all over the place. And we engage them to help be facilitators, doing the national conference, to work on IT and special projects. This is a segment amount of time that they have to do. And I think it works well for them. We've had people come back from previous years who have enjoyed it. And it is our hope that for those who haven't worked on their family history, that it kind of has a spark in them. And then there are a few of them who have actually been researching their family since they were, since they got that assignment in middle school. And they're like, hey, this is a great thing. And we're trying to make sure that that generation knows that we exist. Because, like you said, they're not joiners. So do they even know we exist? That's also the thing.
Well, I know it's, and you may have this again, we're commiserating, I guess. We have far more followers on social media than we do actual members. So, the challenge is, how do we convert those people who are obviously interested in what we're doing and convert those folks into members and reach those.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Paid members. Yeah, exactly. I know I'm kind of embarrassed not to know the answer to this. Is there an Ohio chapter of OGS?
There was years ago, but we don't have one now. We have people that live in Ohio.
Right.
So I lived in Ohio for a couple of years right out of college. But that's why I was saying earlier, we need to reinvigorate ourselves in the Midwest.
Okay, everybody listening in Ohio, you have a mission now, is to get your chapter together so we can do that.
Oh my gosh, yes.
You've been doing genealogy a while, I take it.
Yes.
Do you have a particular story or experience doing genealogy that you really kind of cherish? I mean, that either got you going, or you just were like, this is an amazing find for me personally and for my family history?
Well, for me, it ended up being my father's side of the family.
Mm-hmm.
I started, my great-grandmother that had passed away right before Roots was on my maternal side.
Okay.
And that's when I started to quiz my grandmothers and my great aunt, my paternal great aunt. She was the one that gave me a tremendous amount of information. Right. My father's mother told me things that I didn't know.
Wow. And
I wish I had done a better job of interviewing my parents, because it occurred to me that they knew their great grandparents, but as you say, you got to start. As my aunt said, she's so busy chasing the dead, you forget the living. And you don't want to.
Great advice.
Because the living probably knew the dead, and so especially when they were children, and so I would have had I had some stories.
Yeah.
But I would have loved, as we say, I would love to talk to mommy and daddy now, right?
Yeah.
My dad's, I was able to trace my father's line really all the way back to at least to my second great grandfather, and to identify slave owners and to identify the slaves that they held all the way back to 1782.
Wow.
So that's my father's paternal line. I actually authored an article on that line that had to do with collateral relatives who were in the USCT. They were my great-grandfather's older brothers. Those pension files opened a plethora of information for me and confirmed information that I had already found, especially since my great-grandfather did a deposition and says, yes, this is my brother, and yes, this is who we married. And I was like, oh, okay, yes. And didn't name the names of the mothers, but
right, of course not.
Always naming the names of the men, but that's right. I have the names of the mothers, and I have the maiden names, and it's okay. And I know how they came to be. So one of the things that I would encourage people to do is to join the local historical societies and genealogical societies in the areas where you're researching, even if you don't live there. Yeah. The Woodford County, Kentucky Historical Society was instrumental back. This was over a decade ago, working with me, and I paid my dues and sent in my research money, and they would send me I get this wonderful envelope of things back in the day before we were emailing stuff to when things were just being printed off the microfilm reader. And I still have all of those things.
That's great.
That allowed me to really solidify and identify additional information on my father's paternal side. So that's the one for me. Now I got to work much more on mommy's side.
Yeah. How has DNA affected researching the Afro-American genealogy community?
I think it's opened a lot of doors.
Yeah.
Because of the separation that occurred during the domestic slave trade from the East Coast to what at that time was the West, which would have been Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, Arkansas, Missouri, that those families that were separated, DNA reconnects them. We have one of our chapter members is the genealogist Melvin Collier, who you may know, and Melvin had I love he's published 3 books, but one of them is called From Mississippi to Africa. And he was able through DNA and a great deal of genealogical research and working with family members and organizations and just doing a lot of research over the years to connect his Mississippi family and his North Carolina family. They were, apparently there was the same slave owner, but it's always the first son that inherits everything. So the second and third sons and daughters tend to move away. So there were people that remained in North Carolina. There were people that were in Mississippi, and he was able to bring the two together by virtue of genealogical information and DNA, brought people together. And he does a great series of presentations on how utilizing DNA in addition to genealogical sources can help to bridge that separation that occurred during that period of time for African American families.
Oh, that's great. So what would you like our listeners to know about OGS, and how can they go about joining, and where can they find out more information?
Sure. OGS is a great organization to belong to. I think most people who do belong to it enjoy it very much. Our website is www.aahgs.org. You can join our organization right on the website. Looking at upper right-hand corner, you just say join. Our dues are $35 a year, $45 for families. That's 2 people who live in the same house. We have student members are $20, and then of course our life membership is $1,000. And we have organization memberships, which are $60 a year. As I said, we publish journals. We have quarterly news. We have virtual programs. We have significant email communications. I think the body probably feels like they probably get too many emails from me during the course of a month. I usually send about 2 or 3 with a great deal of information and trying to keep everybody informed. And as I said, our national conference is October 18th through the 21st. The theme is Hidden in Plain Sight, Recovering the Erased Memories of Our Ancestors in the United States and in the Caribbean. So this year we've added about 7 workshops on the Afro-Caribbean experience, because we have special interest groups in major cities like our chapters like New York and Atlanta that have a lot of people who are researching ancestors in the Caribbean. So we are trying to broaden our scope. We invite you to become part of OGS. We think you'll find it to be a pleasant experience, and come join us.
That sounds great. Well, thank you, LaJoy Mosby, president of the Afro-American Historical and Genealogical Society, for joining us today on the Ohio Roots podcast. I really appreciate your time and the information. And let's go, Ohioans. Let's get our chapter together. We got to get that back and running.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Well, I hope you really enjoyed that conversation with LaJoy. I really learned a lot, and I hope you did as well. LaJoy was just a real pleasure to speak to, and had a lot of great advice and insight that I think would be useful to anybody researching genealogy, not just Afro-American genealogy. And it's kind of funny, but LaJoy and I talked for almost 25 minutes after we turned off the mics. She was just a really pleasant person to speak with, and I really enjoyed having her on the show today.
The Ohio Roots podcast is brought to you by the Ohio Genealogical Society, the premier gateway for discovering your Ohio family history. Hosted by OGS Executive Director Noel Poirier and edited by Luke Poirier. Theme song is Beautiful Ohio, recorded by Bob Stanley and his orchestra in 1944. To learn more about joining the Ohio Genealogical Society, visit www.ogs.org.